Let's now talk to Richard Walton. He's a senior fellow at Policy Exchange and a former head of Counter-Terrorism Command in the Metropolitan Police, related to, let's talk about Shamima Begum with him. Good morning to you, Richard.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning. Going back to this topic of Shamima Begum, there's a lot of anger. Virtually every single poll that's ever been done on this says that, the vast majority of the British people do not want Shamima Begum back in this country. They were perfectly happy with her being stripped of her citizenship by the former Home Secretary Sajid Javid. Now, I differ on that front. I've always thought that she was our problem, and if you lead internationally legal, you can't make someone stateless. Then, afraid she is British. But just because she's our problem doesn't mean we should necessarily have her back here, and certainly not ever walking the streets freely here. Do you think that the Court of Appeal made the right decision?
Well, I respect the judiciary enormously and their independence, but I think that on this occasion the Court of Appeal has made a profound mistake, which I think will have serious ramifications for our security and actually set quite a dangerous precedent. So I hope that the Supreme Court will overrule and overturn this decision.
We know the government is going to appeal. What do you think their profound mistake was? Because, there's a difference between disagreeing with a court decision in terms of whether you like it or not, but you're saying that you think that in legally speaking they made the wrong decision.
Yes, I do. I do think legally they made the wrong decision. I think that the Court of Appeal effectively taken over the Home Secretary's responsibility for deciding who should be allowed to enter the UK, and judging for itself the importance of national security against what is effectively a procedural issue, namely whether she has to be present at court for an appeal. And I think they've discounted the security risk that she poses. And I think that this decision basically undercuts the whole point of the power to deprive people, whether you think that's a good power or not, of their citizenship, which Parliament has enacted.
And that's the thing. If the Home Secretary does have the power to strip someone of citizenship and therefore take away their right to return to the UK, for the court to say you have the right to return to the UK to fight that completely undermines it. And Sajid Javid actually put out a statement on Twitter yesterday pointing out that, once she does return, if she does return, we'd have no way of getting rid of her because, of course, human rights legislation would say that she can't be, there's nowhere for her to go, no one else is going to want her, and we can't return her to a war-like hellhole, despite the fact that that's what she chose to do only 5 years ago and was perfectly happy there until she was caught by the opposition forces.
Yeah, and I'm afraid I wonder if this is a decision that's been influenced by gender and age. Some see Begum as a young, vulnerable girl, failing to recognise that increasingly, sadly, women and girls are getting involved in terrorism. In fact, only 2 weeks ago, you'll recall that Safi Sheikh of West London was convicted of plotting a terrorist attack against St Paul's Cathedral and given a life sentence.
Exactly. I do think that it's the fact that she's often referred to as as a former East London schoolgirl. Well, I'm a former North London schoolgirl, but it doesn't mean. I'm a grown woman, and she is a 20-year-old woman. She wasn't a jihadi bride. She joined a jihadist organisation. The idea that she didn't know what she was letting herself in for. She was a straight-A student. She would have seen the news. We knew when she went in 2015, we knew what was happening in Syria. We knew what ISIS were doing. They were putting out beheading videos. And when she was found in February 2019 by a British journalist, Richard Lloyd-Parry, she expressed no remorse whatsoever. She said how, she'd seen things like a severed head in a bin after someone had been executed, and it hadn't fazed her at all. This is not the person. This is not some innocent young ingenue, is it?
No, it's not. Look, in an ideal world, she'd be prosecuted and convicted where she is, but we know that's not possible, and there's no ideal situation here. Obviously it's not ideal to take away her citizenship, but also the citizens of this country deserve to be protected from a threat.
And that's where the court doesn't appear to have taken that into account, does it? They're looking at her human rights as opposed to your and mine, everyone else's human right to wake up in the morning and expect to still be alive and not be blown to smithereens by the end of the day. I consider that to be quite an important human right as well.
Yeah, well, it's putting the individual right over the collective, if you like. And again, I don't support that. I think this is an error of judgment. I think it'll be overturned. I hope it'll be overturned. Otherwise, it is a precedent, and we're going to see a lot more cases like it.
There are about 300 people who were in the same sort of situation, aren't there? Why don't we just charter a private jet for them all and just bring them all back and just put them up in the Ritz at this rate?
Well, none of this is ideal, and none of us would want this situation. Like you said, she doesn't seem to appear to show any remorse. We have to trust also the if you like, the decision of Sajid Javid when he made this decision and what was placed in front of him in terms of the intelligence picture from the intelligence agencies. There's a wealth of difference between that picture and also what could be proven in a court of law with evidence. It's very hard to gather evidence in war zones.
We have the chances of her being prosecuted for anything is virtually zero. And even if she were prosecuted, we're looking at a sentence of something like 4 years, serving only 2, and then she's out on the streets. And we're told, she could be under a equivalent of a control order. But well, we've seen only in the last year, haven't we, a number of terror attacks from people who are supposedly being under the surveillance of the counter-terrorism police. So we know exactly how risky that is. Richard Walton, pleasure to speak to you, sir. He's former head of counter-terrorism command in the Metropolitan Police, now a senior fellow at Policy Exchange think tank.